Okay guys, hey, it's Biff. Today what we're going to do on the STi is try to wrap some stuff up. We finally got some of the parts that we need to keep things moving along here. So finally I got the oil sensor, the correct part. I got the oil tube, get that stuff put back together so that we can get this engine running and sealed off so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Next I'll move down here to the suspension. I've got an inner tie rod in here that we need to replace, and that should wrap up the suspension. Then we'll move to the rear suspension where I have the lower link, rear link on one side that's bent, definitely on the right side. I'm going to pull both off of them and compare them to see if there's any differences between the two. And once I know they're good to go, we can put them both together. Slap the wheels back on, set this baby down, and return the wheels, or the jack stands, over to my son for the 240. He needs them more than I do. Alright, let's get going. So here's this part that we were waiting on, that when it got here was in the form of a rubber seal versus this $70 part. So now we got the right one. Pretty complex metering type system. Don't want to be running the car without it, so here we go. Just realized I better put my thumb over that hole. That would suck to drop that screw down in there. A bit of oil on this seal here to help that pop down in there. There we go. Very nice. Oh my gosh, that one is hard to get to, I forgot. Let's go ahead and do the one that we haven't talked about when I introed was the sound tube delete. So this thing is from Mishimoto, goes in, they're not a sponsor, but we're going to go ahead and put this in here to, as I mentioned before, delete the $250 from the salvage yard components for the sound tube for $15. This cap seems a little bit big and floppy, so not quite what I expected to go on like a heater hose size inlet over there. Not really sure why that is, but we'll take a look at it and see. The other thing that we could consider is if we get that sponsorship from Subaru, then maybe we can just get the sound tube that we want to. We can always reverse this. So let's get this in. Get this off. This was turned around this way last time, obviously, which is wrong. Here's where the tube comes up and over. The interesting part's going to be back here, because here's the, hard to see, so back in here is where this tube goes and connects into that, and then supposedly this is supposed to seal that. I mean, that's ridiculous. This is more, I don't know what the heck this thing is for. Go ahead and check the filter while I'm in here. Blow this out a little bit. The off-road excursion. The off-road excursion seems to have filled it with a little bit of grass and needles. The same ones that were packed into the wheels. So another reason not to do pay the $250 for this tube is because with most of the salvage yards insisting that you sell it with this whole contraption. I'm not too interested in that. I I think eventually here I'd like to get away from this and go to a cold air intake down here. It's got a great well down here where this sets, and that intake just drops straight down in there, and then you can come in through the front. Sometimes I've seen the kits that have a hole here in this front grill piece so that it feeds air into that box, right into the filter. So probably look at one of those in the future. Meanwhile, I'll just sit here and clean this piece by piece. All right, getting this to the back side of this tube has proven to be a big pain in the butt. We've got the glove box out, and I've got working into the cooling or the blower system there. I pulled out the filter. It also, interestingly enough, had a lot of grass needle type stuff in it. So I cleaned that out, and I'm trying to get to somewhere up in that hole up in there is where I should be able to get to the back of that tube. So what I'm going to do next is try to just take out this assembly. Looks like I can get 4 bolts here, like that one there. Here, this one, there's one over here, and then some up in the corners, and maybe I can pull that back enough where I can get up in there and see if I can get to the back side of that tube. Kind of a stupid pain in the butt, but I'm anal that way and feel like I need to get that capped off. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start getting after this inner tie rod in here. And so I've turned the wheel out here. To get on there and see what the inside of that loop's like. Trusty pliers. Got this baby going. Yeah, you can see how much that was bent and then heated and straightened. But thanks to the battery acid that we got on here, I know where the nut was, the top of the nut, so I should be able to get the alignment fairly close. The nut, you want the same amount of threads here on both sides so that that is adjusted the same. And then I'll just keep the nut from turning and go ahead and put this on. That looks about right. Now we gotta do is tap these little edges to keep the pin back over. Okay, good to go.
Sounds like the background to every video game ever.
Put back together. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and get started on getting this rear trailing, lower suspension arm here, whatever you want to call it, out. This one is definitely got a little bit of bending in it. I want to pull it out and look at it and compare it to the other one. Plus there's a place here where it's scraping. I've shown you that in previous videos where this has got pinched down on it somehow. And I need to bend that straight, but I want to compare this one to see if I need to replace it. The other one, I know, as I've shown you before, I will have to replace it. So that's what we're after now. Okay, so here's the one that I pulled out. You can see where the piece of let me see if I can show you where that was bent in on it. This is the part that comes down and sandwiches it, right? And so you can see where it was pinched down on it. Not sure what got up in there and got that, but something got up in there and pinched it. So what I want to know is the rest pretty good? If it is, then I might be able to just bend that back out. It doesn't look like the geometry has changed any. Okay, looks pretty good. Due to the light, looks pretty good. So let's go put that back in. Ta-da! Clearly, a little less, or a little more of a problem, a little less straight than the other one. So we can get a view of them here. Yeah. I did notice a little bit more damage here than I had noticed before. Right in here where this obviously came down hard on something and put a dent across here. I don't think it'll matter a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. The geometry overall still looks good, and there's no other buckling associated with it up here on the top rail or anywhere else. The main thing is, you can see our other one over there. I have to keep an eye on that. If it doesn't align well, I might have to get another one of those after all, because the other one has a nice little swoop from down here to here that you can see. Here's what that one looks like, and here's what that one looks like. So it has a little more of a curvature that continues from front, or from right to left. And this one also has some curvature from left to right, but it just has a little bit of a kink in there. So it might end up being all right. I think what would happen is, if anything, you know, anything that shortens that distance is going to pull that hub closer. And so, being the rear trailing arm, as we saw on the right side, it was so kinked in that it had the tire towed out pretty drastically. So I think that this, you know, would have to be pretty drastic, but it could have some effects. All geometry does. It could have some effects on the toe out of that hub, but it could also have a little bit of a negative camber, I think it would be, where the bottom is tipped in and the top is tipped out. It could have a little bit of that effect. All, I think, workable within the alignment of the car, but we'll see if they aren't able to get that fully into alignment. We may have to replace that piece as well. All right, so we're getting close now. Time to put some rubber back on this baby. Okay, well, folks, that's a wrap for today. Wow, ended up taking a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but we got the things done we wanted to do. Got the inner tie rod replaced on this side. Got the rear suspension replaced and repaired the part that was pinched in and causing all the squeaking in our first video. When you just heard me start it for the first time and move an inch or two forward and rear, you could hear it creaking. Yeah, got the actually ended up doing a delete on the sound tube too, and that ended up being probably one of the biggest problems the whole time, because pulling apart the whole inside, totally unnecessary, just me. I have to make sure I know how it works and that it's done right. So I went inside and pulled out the whole glove box and the whole air handling system in there for the heating and cooling, and that was a lot of trouble. So that took a lot of time, but finally got that taken care of. As you see, we've got it running. We've got the wheels on. She's laying it back on the ground. So total, what you can think of that we've done since we got it is drivetrain's good, right? So we did got the engine oil tube and the oil control valve replaced today. So all the oil leak issues are gone. We've already changed the oil. I need to add a quart to it, but we've already changed the oil. Front end suspension is good to go. Drive shaft is back in from when we coated. Had that disconnected for the all-wheel drive. And then the rear suspension pieces that were grossly bent and causing a lot of towing on that right side have been fixed. The wheels have gone and been straightened because obviously they took some side hits into some curbs or whatever it might have gotten into. So this thing should be good to go, tracking reasonably straight and ready for a wheel alignment. At this point, you know, it's going to be more of trying to get the sheet metal pieces done. We'll start pulling off, you know, next pretty much I think we'll start taking off some of the body panels, bumper, things like that, so that we can start getting in here and replacing some of the sheet metal. It's quite a mess right here where the fuse box goes. I still have my fuse box, but all my fuse buses are just sitting in here loosely, so I've got to get them in there. There's another piece of sheet metal. I did get the corner piece that goes in here. Amazing how flimsy this stuff is, pretty low gauge. But the corner piece that goes in here, unfortunately there's another piece that connects between it and the main unibody frame type construction of the car. So I do have to get another piece in there, and then all of the about 3 pieces I think is what it will take to go in here and actually get the where behind the fuse box and under the battery, so I can put the battery tray in and stuff. It's just kind of all sitting in there right now, not drivable by any means. But anyway, so yeah, we're looking good. It's been a great day, but it's time for me to wrap it up and go spend some time with family. So thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Take care.